All right, let's dive right in. Today, we are talking about one of the most fundamental and honestly, one of the most mind boggling features of our world: biodiversity. We're going to explore the sheer variety of life on Earth, figure out why it's so critical for our own survival, and look at what on earth we're doing to protect it.
I mean, think about that for a second. The sheer variety of life on this planet is kind of hard to wrap your head around, right? So, to give you just a taste of what we're talking about, let's fire off a few numbers. You see them all the time, right? Ants. But have you ever stopped to wonder how many types of ants there actually are? Well, the answer is a whopping 20,000 known species. And believe me, we're just getting started.
Okay, so 20,000 is a lot. But beetles? They just blow that number completely out of the water. Get this: 300,000 different species.
And it's not just on land. Let's head underwater. You've got almost 28,000 species of fish. Now, you've got all this incredible, mind-blowing variety, millions of years in the making. But here's the thing. It's in trouble. Big trouble.
This quote just hits so hard, doesn't it? We're losing these species faster than we can even find and name them. It's like a massive library is on fire, and we're losing the books before we've even had a chance to read the titles. And this isn't just sad, for the animals. It's a huge, direct threat to us. So, okay, it's amazing, but why should we really, truly care? Like, on a practical level? Well, it turns out there are some really solid reasons, and they basically fall into three main buckets. First, you've got the direct economic benefits, the actual stuff nature gives us. Second, there are the life support services, all the crucial things ecosystems do for us. And third, well, there's just our ethical duty. Let's break them down. Okay, let's start with the most straightforward one, the stuff we can literally take, use, and sell. I'm talking about the direct economic gifts that nature just hands over to us. And this is a huge deal. It's our food, cereals, fruits, you name it. It's firewood for fuel. It's industrial products like resins and dyes. But here's a real mind blower: medicines. More than a quarter of all the drugs on the market come directly from plants. Just think about that. What potential cures are we losing before we even find them? All right, moving on to the second big reason. This one's a bit broader. It's about all the stuff nature does for us in the background. The things we totally take for granted, but literally couldn't live without. These are the planet's life support systems. I mean, seriously, how do you put a price tag on the air we breathe? The Amazon rainforest alone churns out about 20% of the Earth's oxygen. What's the dollar value on that? Or think about bees and birds pollinating our crops. Without them, poof, there goes a huge chunk of our food supply. You can't buy these services. They are absolutely priceless. And that brings us to the third argument, which is, well, it's about doing the right thing. It's the ethical case. It says that every single species has value in and of itself, It has a right to exist, whether we can make money off it or not. We share this planet, and we kind of owe it to future generations not to leave behind a mess. Okay, so we've covered the why. Now for the how. How do we actually do this conservation thing? Well, the first big approach is what's called in situ conservation. It's a fancy term for a really simple idea. You protect species right where they live, on site. You save their entire home. And one of the smartest ways to do that is to focus on something called biodiversity hotspots. Now, for a place to get this label, it's got to check two very important boxes. First, it has to be absolutely teeming with life, just a ton of different species. And second, it needs to have a lot of what's called endemism. That just means it has species you won't find anywhere else on the planet. They're unique to that one spot. So how many of these supercritical places are there? You might think there'd be hundreds, right? Nope. Globally, we've identified just 34. 34. That's a shockingly small number, which makes protecting every single one of them unbelievably important. And here's why this is such a game changer. All these hotspots combined, they cover less than 2% of the Earth's land. But, and this is the amazing part, they're so packed with unique life that if we can just protect them, we could slash the current mass extinction rate by nearly 30%. Talk about getting a lot of bang for your buck. And you can see this strategy playing out for real. Take India, for example. They're protecting 3 of these global hotspots: the Western Ghats, Indo-Burma, and the Himalayas. On top of that, they've got 14 biosphere reserves, 90 national parks, almost 450 wildlife sanctuaries, and even sacred groves that have been protected for cultural reasons for ages. It's a huge layered approach. But what if a species is right on the brink of extinction, so endangered that just protecting its home isn't going to cut it? Well, that's when we turn to Plan B. It's called ex situ conservation. Think of it like an emergency room for endangered species, taking them off-site to save them.
So just to be clear on the difference, in situ is on-site, in the wild. Ex situ is off-site. This is where you get things like zoological parks and botanical gardens, but it also includes some really high-tech approaches, like cryopreservation, which is basically freezing genetic material and creating seed banks to save plant species for the long, long haul. It's a crucial safety net. Now, here's the thing. Nature doesn't care about our maps, right? A migratory bird doesn't need a passport to cross a border, and that means protecting all this life can't just be one country's job. It has to be a global team effort. Period.
And the good news is, we have been taking some major steps. Back in 1992, you had the big Earth Summit in Rio. That was a huge deal. It really put conservation on the global map. Then, 10 years later in Johannesburg, things got even more serious. 190 countries actually pledged to put the brakes on biodiversity loss. These agreements are basically the bedrock of our global conservation efforts today. So to bring this all home, I want to leave you with this powerful analogy from an ecologist named Paul Ehrlich. He said to think of an ecosystem as an airplane, and every single species is a rivet holding that plane together. Now, if passengers start popping out those rivets to take home as souvenirs, one or two might not seem to matter. The plane still flies. But you keep popping those rivets, and eventually that whole plane is going to get real weak real fast. And here's the final and maybe the most chilling part of that idea. It really, really matters which rivet you take. Popping a rivet from a seat cushion? Maybe not a big deal. Popping a rivet from the wing? That's a whole different story. So as we watch species vanish, we have to ask ourselves a pretty terrifying question. Which one is the rivet that's holding our wing on?